Oh, do I hit got it?
Yeah, hit got it. Or leave meeting. I'm out of here.
That just warns you that it's, it's going to be live streaming. So prepare thyself because we are live. All right. David, are you staying with us?
Yeah, I'm going to stay with you.
Okay.
Just
On
Hey.
camera?
I'm going to stay off camera, but I'll be here if you need
Okay.
me.
All right. But you're still on camera. Pardon us while we sort out who's on camera and who's not. Welcome to our, how long have we been doing these soul sessions now, Jesse?
Since 2017, but in this format for 6 months.
Okay. So maybe our 6th soul session via Zoom, live via Zoom, which we are excited to be able to do because 1, we get to do it from the comfort of our own home, and 2, we can get interesting speakers like Miss Denise right here. We want to give you a little bit of background on Denise, who has agreed to do this soul session. And I want to remind you that the title of this soul session is Law, Love, and the People.
Yes.
Or is it the other way around?
I think it's
Love.
love first.
Yeah,
Okay,
love.
Yes, it is. It is
Love always
law,
comes first.
That's
love,
right.
law, and the people. Now, why would we choose that title? Well, because Denise is a lawyer. And so we want to give you a little bit of background information on her. She is from Houston. She graduated from Texas Southern University, which is a historic Black college, with a bachelor's degree in business administration. She then went to the University of Iowa College of Law and obtained a Juris Doctorate, which you're going to have to explain what that is because I've never even heard of it.
Law degree.
Okay. And she's got a resume. She has got a resume. She's been a law librarian, a paralegal teacher, an office manager, but what she loved was being a public defender in Philadelphia, which she did for more than about a decade. And then she decided to come home. And so she was a felony prosecutor here in Texas, first in San Antonio, and then has moved to Conroe, and she has decided to go into private practice. And I will let you explain about what she does in her private practice in the conversation with Jesse. So we want to welcome Ms. Denise Lagway-Slate. We are thrilled. She's a member of our center. We are very proud of her. So I'm going to turn the camera over to Jesse and Denise, and we're going to see where this goes.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, welcome, Denise.
Thank you.
Let me add to your sterling resume. You're always there at the mobile food events that we stage with the Montgomery County Food Bank, you and your husband, Dennis. And Dennis was a guest in a soul session we had in July as a member of the military when we talked about military service. It's a joy to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for taking your time to do this after a busy day. I want to start with this. 2 things. One is the importance of historically Black colleges and universities. Tell us something about that, because I think in the white world, there's a misperception that they're sort of a relic of a bygone era, and that could not be further from the truth.
That is true. They're going stronger than ever before. Just recently, I believe it was Jeff Bezos' wife. She just donated, I don't recall the amount, but I want to say like over $3 million to Texas Southern University. And I believe before then she donated money towards to Preview University, which is right outside of, it's located between the Houston and I want to say the Brennan area. And so she's donated money to those two universities. The one that's known nationwide is like Spelman, which is the university for African American females, and for males, it was Morehouse, and that's where a lot of our leaders and major doctors graduated from. There are several throughout the country, so they're known as like you said, historically Black colleges and universities. And basically what they're all about is they usually have an open door policy, because there is the belief that education can help uplift you. And so therefore, most of the universities have like an open door policy. You can come in, you can get your education and graduate. And which is very interesting, because typically most parents and students always want to go to the Big Ten or the Ivy League type colleges and stuff. And those are based on rankings that's usually in the national news week and report where they're ranked, and that's where they want to go. Whereas with the Black colleges, the most important thing is getting the education. And so, and they produce quality, well-educated students from there. So.
Thank you. I was amazed to read maybe a year ago an article, and I'll find it and send it to you again, about how during the Second World War, Jewish intellectuals fleeing the Nazi regime, who were college professors and researchers, were not welcomed at most universities in this country, but the HBCUs welcomed them, and they were able to continue their research and their academic careers.
Yes.
That's just beautiful to me. That brings tears to my eyes.
I want to say that I believe it was Malcolm Gladwell that's just released a paper out talking about the HBCUs and how they are, what's the word for it? As far as education, that they are well quality education at these universities. And some of them are even among the top, but they're students who don't want to go there because they are a Black university. For instance, Texas Southern is like #1 ranked as far as pharmacy school, but you don't see it overflowing with a lot of pharmacy students, but it is #1. And few people who are not African Americans who come down here because they just want to get into school are quite surprised once they're here. Some transfer because they are not used to being the minority in an all-Black college, and because of that, being uncomfortable in that situation, have transferred to other schools. But a lot of the universities and colleges are very highly ranked, but it doesn't show as far as the tuition and the number of students that are actually attend there and graduate there.
Well, thank you for that. And you're a proud TSU Tiger. And
yes.
We have Cedric Johnson is too. I hope he's watching tonight. We have several alumni of TSU in the Creative Life congregation, and also Prairie View, and also Howard.
Yes,
in fact,
definitely Howard. Yes.
Someone who I hope to have on as a guest in a future Soul Session is a Howard graduate. So the second thing, and this is, I'm jumping around here, but I don't want to let this get away. When you and I spoke face to face, maybe the first time, about doing this Soul Session, and I brought up how I knew you had been an ADA and now are working in defense representation. You said very excitedly, and Lisa picked up on this too, you said very excited, yes, but the most interesting time I had was as a public defender in Philly. So please tell us about that.
It was the most exciting time. And I think because I was part of a team. When I first started at the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office, we had 185 attorneys. By the time I left, we had like 250. And so it was very exciting because there was a whole group of us and we were all fighting for a cause. And that cause is the Constitution. We believe that everybody should have fair representation as far as having a trial and being charged of accused of a crime. So there were many things that we fought for. It took a while, but we finally got accomplished. And I guess it was the excitement of being a part of a team, because now that I'm a solo practitioner, now I understand why they call it solo practitioner, because you're on your own. And it made me appreciate not just other attorneys, but the support staff, the social workers, the investigators that we had there, different people that helped out. You could always pick up the phone and call someone and get their ideas, and just the sharing of ideas. And I still stay in touch with a lot of those people, and they have moved on. I'm proud to say one of my boss ended up working with the Obama administration in juvenile, because I really did enjoy juvenile. My belief was, if you can get to them early, then, as I used to say, they don't graduate into the adult criminal system. And a lot of juveniles, they're just doing the best they can, because a lot come from broken families. Some are supporting their families and they get in trouble. And what I really hate about the juvenile system is that we're putting adult, I guess, behavior on children. I sort of specialize in sexual assault, and a lot of things sometimes that I saw was just children merely experimenting, being curious. And because we're adults, we see something sexual that they're doing when it may not be that way at all. But then there are other times where reality hit. Unfortunately, pedophiles have to start somewhere, but at least I felt like I was able to get them on the right track, those that were not, well, they still have a special place. For those who are not able to be rehabilitated, and try to get them on the right track. And so I did enjoy working with the juvenile system up there. But as far as criminal defense overall, I really, and I still enjoy it, but I really did enjoy it up there, and making a stand and making a difference. So.
Did Philly recruit you out of law school? Is that how you got there?
No, actually, how I got there, I did, and I will plug this. I do believe in internships. Internships have definitely saved me. I did an internship at the San Diego Public Defender's Office. And I was out there when I discovered the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. And so that's where my start. Unfortunately, but I'm very proud of the fact that Houston now has a public defender's office. But even when I came back 20 years later in 2007, they did not have a public defender's office. Whereas the one in San Diego and in Philadelphia probably been around since like 1985 or so. So it makes a big difference. And like I stated, in Philadelphia, we had over 250 attorneys. At the time that I did my internship in San Diego, I don't recall how many, but it was pretty large, because they developed a second, what they call an alternate public defender's office. And what that did is, if two people got caught committing a crime together, then one would get the San Diego Public Defender's Office, and the other one would get the alternate Public Defender's Office. And that way they were isolated, and what we call a Chinese wall, the two cases, did not cross over, except for maybe if you wanted a joint trial or something of that sort. So, yeah, I definitely, I'm a big public defender fan. And even now I tell people when they say they're public defender, and I'm like, I point out, you have a court-appointed attorney and a public defender. There's a difference between the two. And most most clients see that here in Texas. There's definitely a difference between the two. And it's the resources that makes the difference.
That's what I was going to ask is if Houston didn't have a public defender's office, how did people get public defense? Did they go like just through a Rolodex of?
It's a wheel, they call it, and it's a list of court-appointed attorneys that they got appointed to. Yes. And basically you have to, I want to say, like, pass a test, because they don't just take anybody, but you have to be tested and qualified to get on the wheel. And as your name comes up, and I'm not quite sure how it works in Houston, but there's also a court-appointed list here in Montgomery County and in most counties.
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, there's 254 counties, and each county is its own little kingdom. So,
yeah. So you came back to Texas and you began to work, and you worked in Houston and then in San Antonio, or?
What happened was I was an ADA in a small town, and that was about, I had two different jobs, because one thing I realized that once I was back in Texas is it's very political here. And what happened was the ADA, the district attorney that I was working for was not reelected. And so what happens is when the new person comes in, they want to replace everybody. And so I ended up in a small town, just a little bit north of San Antonio. I lived in New Brownsville.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a while, and it just didn't work out. So I decided to open up my own shop in San Antonio, and then I met my husband and we decided to move here to the Houston area.
So you met Dennis in San Antonio. I wasn't clear on that.
Yes.
I had his bio in front of me in July. Yeah, that's awesome. And so now in Conroe, and in you and I have been working with Tamina, as a number of us have, with the food events. And there's another event. I won't tip our hand just yet. Danielle and I had a conversation about 2 hours ago. There's another event coming up that we're going to be involved with the Tamina Community Center. The experience of working with people from a freedman's town and from a town like Conroe, with its history of racial segregation. I only recently found out there was a historically Black college called Conroe College that existed in downtown Conroe on the east side of the courthouse until I don't know when, I think the 1950s. And the building apparently still stands. But what's your experience in this area of racial disparity, shall we say, in the justice system?
Well, it definitely does exist. And it's sort of interesting because the whole reason why I wanted to become a lawyer is that I believe that the principles and the theories of law should apply equally to everyone. And I guess that was my belief. The reality was sort of shocking that it does not apply to everyone equally. And so it has been my experience, even starting with law school, being an African-American student, that I actually saw my peers not treated the same as everyone in the classroom. We had an experience where a professor was calling on people one by one going down the row. And we noticed that every time it came to a Black person, he skipped over them. We later found out that the rationale behind it is that he didn't want to put that much pressure on us. And we were like, well, we have to be able to stand up just like our counterparts to make arguments and think on our feet. You're not doing us a service by skipping over us. We need to learn how to perform under pressure. So that was the start where I realized that the law does not necessarily apply equally. Also, reading case law, got frustrated because there is a move for plain English as far as the law is concerned.
Mhm.
I'm sure some of you are familiar with thou and said and things like that. And it's like, just say what you need to say, and all the fluff and stuff needs to be taken out. When it comes to the actual practice of law, there is still inequality. Just recently, I had a client that I received as a court appointment. And the reason why I received him is because the last attorney, they just did not click. And I know the attorney, very good attorney, and I was really surprised because he's like one of the top attorneys. But for some reason, the client was very hostile towards him. And so he was taken off the case, and I was appointed. And I had a totally different experience. And I realized it's because we were of the same color. And his frustration was, which I thought was very shocking because I realized he was true, that the only reason why he kept getting stopped by the cops is because he didn't have a front license plate. And he told me, he's like, there are lots of cars out there without front license plates. Why am I being singled out? And from that day forward, I noticed that he was right. There are dozens of cars out there without front license plates. But that was the reason why he was being stopped, because he didn't have a front license plate. It sort of goes back to the old days when you could be stopped for having the, what was that hang from your rear view mirrors,
Oh, you tassel?
Yeah,
Yeah,
things like that.
off
Some
your-
people
yeah.
got stopped, some people didn't. And it's just a matter of, if the cop wants to stop you, and once he stops you, as one cop told me, I can find any reason to stop somebody. And he's pretty much true. I've seen people get stopped because they didn't signal when they changed their lane, things like that. And it's just a matter of who you are or who the cop thinks you are. Because I have a friend that comes up to Houston quite often. She's from Houston, and she states that every time she comes up here, she gets stopped by the cops because she drives a Mercedes. And then it wasn't until one cop actually told her, well, this is considered the drug corridor. And that was one reason why she was being stopped. But once she realized that, it's pretty frustrating, because it's the old saying, driving while black, you're being stopped. So I do see some of that happen, and it's everywhere. When I was in San Antonio, I had a client. He was stopped, and what happened was a neighbor called the cops because a suspicious person was in the neighborhood. The only reason why he was in the neighborhood, he caught the bus as far as he could to get to his neighborhood, and then he had to walk the rest of the way. And that's why I was like, well, what was he doing that was suspicious? He was just walking home. And nowadays we see this kind of things happening all the time because of videos, and everybody has cameras. But these kind of things have been going on for some time, and people have complained about it, but nobody would believe that such a thing would occur. Well, now we've been just overwhelmed with all the videos. We have people that are getting trouble because they were in the park and they were trying to barbecue, and someone decided to call the cop. A person was stopping another person from having their dog on a leash, and cop was called on him. And so it's just all kinds of things that are happening that I believe if it wasn't for the cameras, we would still be in doubt if such things do occur. But it's definitely in the legal system, and there are just, I took some notes, there are just tons of things, but it just seems like it, because if you go on the internet and Google, it's just amazing how many stories you can come up with. I have that there's inequality as far as mass incarceration. We all hear about how young Black and brown men from disadvantaged neighborhoods, are basically prisoned more than than their white counterparts compared to the overall population. Uh, Mandatory minimums. That was something that was developed, as far as doing the war on drugs. And now we realize that they have, consequences we never thought about. Because now, if you think about what's the difference between crack cocaine and cocaine, it's still the same thing. Well, the difference is crack, mostly, minorities use that, whereas cocaine, Caucasians use that. And so there was the differences in the sentencing as far as that was concerned. So that sort of backfired. And now that we know more, we're trying to rectify these things. Also, there's like police profiling, like the two examples that I just gave. And then there's police brutality. And even though the George Floyd thing just happened last year, personally, I feel like I've been holding my breath since the Rodney King beating. I mean, that was just awful. And I remember, I want to say, I think I was in California at that time. I don't recall, but I just recall seeing that and just feel like I've been holding my breath since that time. And I'm pretty sure we're not the first generation. We won't be the last generation, but at least we're trying to rectify the situation and try to get justice and equality for everyone, regardless to who they are. And not just race, but also based on sex and gender. I mean, we've come a long way, and I'm really grateful for that because, like I said, love comes in many forms and many shapes and sizes. And it's just a matter of having respect and being heard and not, I guess, doubting what you hear. Although you may not experience, it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. So that's why I wanted the love, because love comes first.
That's a line I heard. I forget who said it about if it's not happening to me, it's not happening.
Happening, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And we're able to, and I think, another aspect of the disparity in treatment between people of color and white people is the outrage and the panic over the opioid crisis and fentanyl, and that principally affects poor white people.
Yeah.
And so we have to do something, and we have to pour millions of dollars. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but where was that money? Where was that concern around crack cocaine, and where was that concern around HIV/AIDS?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
In communities of color. The question, I guess, philosophically, I want to ask you, Denise, is you have an optimism about you. You've been in this work a long time. You grew up in the South, but you seem to exude an optimism that things can improve.
Yes. Yes. And I guess that it comes from the simple fact, like I said, I've lived all over this country except for the Northwest. And it is true. God bless America. Although we're divided now, we're not really fighting each other, but it is a miracle. And I believe it is the love of this country that keeps us together. I like to think of the U.S., the East Coast is la la land. Whatever your dream is, you can make it come true. It's up to you. The East Coast, I think of as being reality based, because Philadelphia is a tough city and they take no mess. Coming from the South, we're definitely different. And but we get along, and we do have our struggles. The latest is, what's going on in the news with the abortion thing and all of that, but it will work its way out. And as far as the North, like New York and Oregon, like I said, I've never lived in Oregon or that part of the country, but it is truly amazing that we get along as well as we do. I have to admit, it's a little scary now because now it's not just people, but it's our whole system of democracy that's at stake. And hopefully, we will be able to come together again. We may never agree on things totally, but as far as the respect, that seemed to be lacking. And I'm hoping that will come, uh, will be something that we can work on and respect each other. And like I said, just because it's not happening to you doesn't mean that it's not happening, and just show more compassion towards our fellow man, because it does come down to the individual. And that's what we have to realize is what is our part in trying to make things better. And with me, I try to listen to my clients, their frustration, uh, their concerns, and take it from there. Because my belief is we're all human, we all make mistakes. Mistakes can be corrected. Not everything has to be punished, and just give people a second chance. And that's my belief, and that's the love that I try to bring as far as representing people in law. And I tell them all the time, do not let this derail you. This is just one incident, one part of your life. And I usually ask the younger people, well, how old are your grandparents? You know you're going to live as long as they are, and you're just only what, 23, 24 years old. You can get through this. And so I try to talk to people and let them realize that they're stronger, and they will get through the situation that they are facing at the time. So that's where the optimism comes from, is helping people.
That is beautiful. Yeah, people make mistakes, but people are not mistakes.
Exactly,
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a move afoot to eliminate incarceration. There's a move afoot to, and has been for a long time, to convert incarceration to real rehabilitation instead of punishment. Sometimes what's brought in is the Northern European model, like Scandinavia. In Norway, I'm given to I don't have the information in front of me, but I'm given to understand that prisoners in lockup have a room with a window. Their exercise time is out in the woods. And the idea is to inspire them to do what it takes to serve their time, to get an education behind bars and so on, so that they want to re-enter society rather than coming out so beaten down by the experience of being punished. Is that, to your thinking, naive or an overreach?
One thing I want to point out about that situation, how many non-Scandinavian people are there?
Well, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, see,
right.
and that's what I'm wondering. I was like, it sounds great, and I think it would work, but I'm pretty sure that they're dealing with people that look like them, and therefore they have that belief. Whereas here in the state, if they're looking at somebody that does not look like them, I mean, what's the chances that that will actually be implemented here and can work? Because once you're out there, then you still have to face the fact, can you get a job? Can you find a place to live with this record? And given that everything is equal, if there's two people being released from prison and they have the same record, the same time, one is Black and one is white, what are the chances that they're both going to find a job or even go for the same job, and which one will get picked? It would all depend on who the boss is, what type of environment it is, and things like that. So it sounds good. And I like the idea that we are thinking towards something like that, but implementing it and seeing it happen. But there's always hope.
There's always hope.
Yeah.
So underneath all the politics or
that's it,
institutional change or the system, there has to come the appreciation of one another as godlings.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to take a look at themselves. One thing and I've taken it a couple of times just to keep myself in check, and you can find it online. It's a test called implicit bias, and it's really good. There's subjects that I hadn't even thought about. You can take a test on your bias towards racism. I never thought about a bias towards people that are overweight, things like that. And so it's all types of categories that you can take a test. And that way, you know where you stand and where you need to improve, and to seek out answers to help the next person along the line. Like me personally, well, we're no longer friends, but I had a friend, and I remembered he made a comment. I had owed him some money, and I'm not good at math. And he said, what are you trying to do, Jew me? And I said, what? And he said, Jew me. And I said, what do you mean by that? I sort of thought I knew what he was talking about, but he was my friend. And so when he explained that to me, what he meant, which is what I thought he meant, shortchange him, I said, well, why did you say Jew me? And he looked at me puzzled. I said, well, what do you say when I'm not around? You know? And so that's what you have to think about. We're each keepers of looking out for each other. So just like I stand up, the next person needs to stand up, even, if it's not being targeted to them, to stand up for one another, because we're all connected. So what hurts me, even if I'm not there, may hurt the next person. So that's why I say take the implicit bias, find out where you stand, learn from that, and then try to educate others. And there's several.
Lisa, please
I was gonna ask.
Implicit bias. Please put that in the comments.
I see one for Harvard. Was there one?
Yes.
Okay.
I've taken that one. There's one by the ABA. Like I said, there's several out there, but the Harvard one is very good.
Okay. All right. I've already got it pulled up. I just wanted to check.
Okay.
There was a woman minister in religious science I knew about 20 years ago, and she injured herself somehow, and she was for a while in a wheelchair. And she came to one of our conventions in a wheelchair. And those of us who knew her knew it wasn't, it wasn't a permanent condition. It was just she had an orthopedic thing going on. But she actually gave a speech about the different reactions that she got now, where everything was happening up here. And she's sitting down here, and people are assuming a level of intelligence and assuming a level of education and assuming all sorts of things, the conversation, talking to her like she's a child, basically people who didn't know her because of this. And it made a huge impact. And that was a reversible condition. Right. That wasn't her ethnicity or something that she was going to wear for all of her life. It was a reversible condition, and she got to see that level of disrespect, like the professor showed you and your classmates. And I think that's really important to point out, is that there's a form of racism that's disingenuous and paternalistic and condescending, as well as the type of racism that's ugly and confrontational and violent.
That is true. Matter of fact, I think the term racism has sort of been hijacked. I did not a little research, but I looked up the term, and basically there's three types. There is which we've been talking about, is this long night, institutionalized racism. And that's, where culture, where the policies and the practice of an institution operates to produce systemic and continuing differences between racial groups. And I thought that was interesting because it always reminded me of Star Trek. I used to love the scenes of Star Trek when they have their little conventions, and they would have all these different aliens, sitting around the table arguing and stuff. And I used to think, why is it that up until this point, they always made all the minorities compete for the one seat at the table, where it was never like that in Star Trek. And so that sort of addresses that. And then there's the, I'm drawing a blank here, ideological racism, where culture and biology are used to rationalize and justify a superior position of a dominant culture. And I think that's probably where we are now. But what I like to concentrate on is on the personal prejudice. And I believe in that term because I believe that a lot of people may be prejudiced, but they're not racist. Because to me, the difference is prejudice is just where you miss or prejudge a situation or a person. But once you're aware of that and you change your ways, that doesn't make you a racist. And to me, that's the difference. And I think a lot of people, just through upbringing and our experience and stuff, we have certain prejudice and stuff, and we're not even aware of it. That's why I keep saying do the implicit bias thing. And that's why I believe it's an individual. We can, as individuals, change our ways and make it grow and touch each other. Then we can start to build and change the other two forms of racism that's in our country. So that's my hope and my belief. And so it just takes each one of us, to do our part, because not everyone is a Martin Luther King or a Rosa Parks or anything like that, but each person can do their share once they realize where they are themselves and where they stand.
We could talk for hours on this, and I would like that, and we should do this again, and bring in some others as well.
Yeah.
Because ideas keep coming, I'm sure, to both of us. Let's talk a little bit about poverty and economic exclusion. A minister friend of mine, a woman of color, said in a talk I heard some years ago, this is in California, but she's from the South, and she said, in the South, it's not so much black against white as it is rich against poor. And there's at the level of poor people, and especially rural poor people, there's more of a bond between white and black of shared oppression at the hands of agribusiness.
Yes, I do believe that. It's sort of weird because I don't want to say once you get so low, you realize there's no difference. I mean, you all have a shared common ground, and therefore you look past race when it comes to that. As far as in the South, I would say it's no longer contained to the South any longer. We have become a nation of, those who have and those who do not, period. And it's just a matter of what are we going to do about it? I want to say it's not fair, but then sound like a little kid. Life is not fair, but you just can't ignore it. And we need to come up with solutions for it. Initially, that's what our legislators are supposed to be about, is making sure that things are at a even level playing field, but that's not happening, especially here in Texas, because now we're, as far as voting rights, and that's the stepping stone. That's the bottom line. If you don't have local support in your legislations then how you're able to build up to something larger like our U.S. Congress and things like that. So it does start locally, and I don't mean just the state legislator. I'm talking about your different communities and local government. One thing I'm proud of is the simple fact that Houston has really changed a lot since I've been back, and it's gotten to be a place that it is multicultural, and I love that. The simple fact the mayor has not forgotten people. I mean, I see from time to time that he goes back to his own neighborhood and check on the people there, and that's what it's all about. It's about caring for everyone, being the mayor for everyone, being the president for everyone. You can't please all the people all the time, but don't forget some of the people. You know, just because you don't hear their voices doesn't mean that they're not there. And that's one thing I like about Houston.
I think in Harris County aren't there 18 or 19 female African-American county judges in Harris County, I believe, elected judges.
Yeah.
That's a statistic that when you quote that in California or New York, eyebrows go up. Can't be possible. You know, one or two, but 18 or 19, that's fantastic. That's just fantastic.
I know at least two of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure you do. And more who are, you know, one of the inspiring things about these soul sessions is I'm hoping, and I know you're hoping, that tonight there are children watching this thinking, I want to do what she does.
I was,
you know,
yeah, I was thinking about that because I honestly, I don't recall knowing a lawyer when I was growing up. I have no idea what, I want to say, spirit got in me that made me decide I wanted to be a lawyer. But I do credit my internship. What happened was, it was my third year in college. I did one internship with USA Today and realized I didn't really like business, at least that aspect of it. And so I did a second internship, and it was to the US House of Congress. And so I went to DC, and I was fascinated. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was really nice. And I felt like I was helping. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. And I was like, oh my goodness, this happened just in time. And so that's what prompted me to go to law school. And, but yeah, I don't recall knowing any lawyers growing up.
Yeah. How would it have been if you had? Let's know. We can, this video of tonight circulating, where especially young women of color looking at this saying, yeah, I want that. I want that. It's amazing.
And
That's
the other
wonderful.
reason why I picked law, you can start off in one area and end up doing something completely different. Because like I said, I wasn't quite sure, but once I got to the public defender's office, I realized that's what I really enjoy doing. There are other things I enjoy, but that made me realize that was my passion, was helping people. So, yeah.
Let's come back to the love for just a moment, and then I think we'll go to, I've got 10 minutes to the hour, so we'll go to the questions that Lisa and Danielle are finding on Facebook. A lot of people who look like me are struggling right now to maintain the power they feel they have in the culture by right of looking like me, by right of tradition, 200 plus years of a certain interpretation of American history. A number of Black and brown people who are seeking power are finding it, and have found it for a long time, through spiritual means. I'm thinking here of the Black churches. I'm thinking here of the rich Catholic heritage of Latino people. I look forward to all of us understanding there's one power,
Right.
and it's not a temporal power. It's not a power of this earth. And I will never get the comfort and the peace that I need in my heart by believing that it is of this earth and acting like that, especially in terms of oppressing other people or allowing their oppression once I become aware of it. If all of us were to turn within to the God of our understanding, we'd have enough source from that we wouldn't feel threatened if our neighborhood changed or our industry changed or our educational system changed. If the demographics of our land changed, we would in fact embrace it. And this brings up another point that has come up in these conversations with people of color and also with LGBTQ people about proximity. And I think this is what my friend the minister was speaking about too, in the rural South, the proximity. When you bring people together physically in close contact, such as in a neighborhood, you can't make up wild and fantastic stories about how different they are.
Right.
All the kids go to school, everybody is, it's the same energy that goes on as the generations move through. And suddenly you have a wider circle of neighbors and friends. And what a beautiful thing that is. And that's the kind of world I want to live in. And that's the kind of world that you're helping to build. And I envy you. I'll tell you why I envy you. Because in the work that I do, I don't see a tangible result in the same way that you do when somebody takes a stand in their life and they say, okay, I committed a crime, but I'm going to move past this and I'm going to be a better person and I'm going to live a more fulfilling life. The changes that I perceive in people as a minister, less dramatic than that. They don't happen around a societal judgment and so on. Somebody just decides to, pursue a spiritual path and off they go. So you're to go back to the old, that old story of that vignette, you're throwing starfish back in the ocean. So they don't strangle. And you're saying to yourself, well, right now I can't clear the whole beach, but I can save this one.
Yep, that's exactly how I feel. It's like I don't get to see the results all the time. And like I tell my clients, because they want to say, well, what would you do? And I tell them, only thing I can do is give you the information. It has to be your decision, because after your case is over with and after today, I get to go home and live my life. I just want you to know that you can get through this. I just feel that people need to, they can be their worst critic, and just to let them know that, yes, you messed up. You're owning up to your responsibility. You're taking care of it. Let's get this done and move on. And not having them leave the system thinking with a defeatist attitude. It's like this. That's why I always stress to them, this is just one day. This is just one incident out of your life. You're going to get through this. Because a lot of people, especially in the criminal system, they just want to get it done and over with. That's why people in jail often plead to cases that they're not, guilty of, because they don't want to sit there waiting for a trial, that may end up them being guilty anyway. And so they just want to get it done and over with. They want to get back to their life and things like that. And sometimes like I tell them, the wheel of justice turns slow, very slow, because you shouldn't be in a rush to judgment all the time. And it's easier when you're out of custody, because I'll tell my clients that are in custody, if you're in jail, you're going to get a jail offer, because they know that you want to get out and stuff. So that's how some people that are not guilty end up being guilty, because they just want to get it done and over with. And you're right, I don't always get to see the results, but the ones that I do get to see, I'm very happy. And I'm like, that's one person that I was able to help. And that makes a difference, because people, they're doing, I hear you say it all the time, and I'm quoting you all the time too. They're doing the best they can at the time of the situation, and they're not thinking things all the way through because they're under pressure. And I tell them that, you all, wasn't it a little silly? And they think about it and they'll say, yeah, that was. And it's minor stuff. Like I get kids up here in Montgomery County when they get charged with possession of marijuana. Well, if I was in Houston, I hate to tell you that, but you're not in Houston, you're in Montgomery County, and we take, pot possession very seriously here. They're getting a little bit better, but time, it takes time to make things change, but we're working on it, and we're not there yet, but we're doing something. We're not just sitting back and saying, oh, well, we're making changes. What we're going through right now, I'm pretty sure they went through it after, the Civil War. How can we make things better? Then again, we addressed it in 1964 with the Civil Rights Action. We're making progress. It's just not fast enough.
Yeah.
Then some things have been accelerated. I mean, this whole thing, with the movement, with the Black Lives Matters, and don't get caught up with the media so much. Sit and think and meditate on things, and just don't take it for granted what you see on the news or what you read on Facebook, but think and digest and come up with what works for you as an individual and make your mark and move from there and be comfortable with it. So.
And that's the spiritual program you just described,
Yeah.
Go within and look at the self. I know they have some questions for us off of Facebook, or I'm pretty sure they do. Let's hear.
Not questions so much. There's been some chatter.
Okay.
Talking about one, they mentioned Tracy. Why does her name just pop out? She was one of the teachers, Tracy Brown. She was one of my teachers. Her website, which we've got in the chat, and then 8 of the 12 from the last election were from historically Black colleges.
Yay!
And the Fort Bend Harris County judge actually grew up in India.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
so, yeah. So there's some going on. And I also just wanted to let people know, because you both talked about kind of representation and the video cameras and things like that. Well, there's a comedian. She's one of Seth Meyers' writers. Her name's Amber Ruffin.
Okay.
And she has her own show on Peacock, but she has a book out, and I'm going to put it on my wish list tonight.
Okay.
Because she's a comedian, and she wrote it with her sister, and it's called "You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey." And that's exactly what it is it's a number of stories of these interactions that they've had because they're young Black women.
Right.
The interactions that they've had with police officers and other things, and they do it in, a heartfelt and funny way, but it's still, when you hear her tell these stories, you're just like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
So that's why they wrote the book. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. Danielle had asked about when I spoke with her by phone before our event tonight. She had asked about resources. Can you suggest, Denise, some resources for a person who's charged with a crime? Maybe they can't make cash bail. Maybe they can't get transportation to their hearings, things like this. What are some free or nearly free resources for the accused?
Well, the one that the court does is the court-appointed attorney. As for, because as far as bail, see, I'm not sure what Harris County is doing right now, but you can either get a PR bond. I really don't know. And that was the other thing that I did want to, I don't want to give any legal advice because
Sure.
Yeah, it is an individual thing. And so, and it takes a lot of, different factors to figure out what the situation is. Because that's the other thing I love about my clients. They're always telling me what I call ghost stories. And once I start digging, it's like, no, their situation was nothing like yours because it is fact specific. But as far as the ability and not getting to court, I always tell my, they managed to get everywhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay. All right. Yeah.
but,
Because you get arrested, you lose your job, then you have no income, then you can't, it's a cycle of.
yeah. Only thing I can think of is some type of pro bono work. Usually the law schools have clinics and things like that specialize in pro bono work, but that's usually for like they have legal clinics for like family law stuff, things like that.
Yeah.
Child custody. But as far as criminal, but you could check with the university, like University of Houston.
Oh, okay.
And then there's South Texas College of Law.
They're good
the other one, right? And see if they have programs.
Okay, thank you.
And there are some private attorneys that do pro bono work to offset, from the other works that they do.
I know about the Innocence Project. I think
Right.
that's heavy duty felonies. That's like capital crimes and things.
Right,
that they
exactly.
involve themselves in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Danielle and Lisa. Anything else you want to share from Facebook?
No, but we did get up she put a link up to that book that I mentioned.
Great.
Okay.
It's not the only one. I just figured that it's a soft take that people who look like me and you, Jesse, it might be an easy way in. Because it's coming from an amazing comedian.
Yeah, any way in. Any way in is a good way
That's
in.
the way I look at it. Right.
Yeah. Anyway. Well, Denise, our time is up. Again, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. This again is Denise Lagway-Slate. Your legal practice is Denise Lagway, though, right?
Yes,
LLC. Yeah. And you have a website and you practice in Montgomery County in Conroe.
Yeah, Montgomery County and the surrounding counties.
And
I try to help. Yes, because I do try to help out those who are in Grimes and Walker. Not everybody is part of Harris County.
No.
So I try to make my services available. There are plenty of attorneys in Harris County for you guys to choose from. So, yeah.
Well, it's been a joy to talk with you tonight. It's a joy to know you. Thank you so much for your involvement in creative life. And I look forward to decades together doing really cool stuff and helping heal this hurting world.
We're getting there. I have hope. We're getting there. Who knows? It may be my niece that will be, the next, Martin Luther King Jr. or something like that. But yes, we're always moving forward. Always. So we're not going back. I put it that way. We're not going back. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.